Let's go ahead and stand. If you are able to, we're going to start off this evening singing He Keeps Me Singing. There's within my heart a melody, Jesus whispers sweet and low. Let's lift it up here on the first verse now. There's within my heart a melody, Jesus whispers sweet and low. Fear not, I am with thee, peace be still, in all of life's ebb and flow. Amen. Let's sing it out now. Jesus, 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 sweetest name I know, fills my every longing, keeps me singing as I go. All my life was wrecked by sin and strife. Discord filled my heart with pain. Jesus wept across the broken strings, stood the slumbering chords again. Amen. Jesus, 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 sweetest name I know, fills my every longing, keeps me singing as I go. Feasting on the riches of His grace, resting neath His sheltering wing, always looking on His smiling face. That is why I shout and sing. Amen. Jesus, 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 sweetest name I know, fills my every longing, keeps me singing as I go. Though sometimes He leads through waters deep, trials flow across the way. Though sometimes the path seems rough and steep, see His footprints all the way. Amen. Jesus, 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 sweetest name I know, fills my every longing, keeps me singing as I go. On that last verse now, soon He's coming back. Soon He's coming back to welcome me, far beyond the starry sky. I shall wing my flight to worlds unknown, I shall reign with Him on high. Amen. Jesus, 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 sweetest name I know. Sing it out. Fills my every longing, keeps me singing as I go. Amen. What a wonderful way to start things off. Now we're going to sing Standing on the Promises of Christ my King. Let's lift it up now. Standing on the promises of Christ my King, through eternal ages let His praises ring. Glory in the highest I will shout and sing. Standing on the promises of God. Amen. Standing on the promises of God, my Savior. Standing, I'm standing on the promises of God. Standing on the that's true this evening, say amen. Amen. Good singing. You can be seated.
I don't know if anyone else misses handshaking time. I'm missing handshaking time a little bit. I know people have said, oh, the handshake should die or whatever. I miss it. All right, I miss it. But that being said, just want to give a quick reminder. Please still be careful. Keep your kids with you. Don't let them run wild. And do your best to make sure we keep our hands to ourselves and try to be considerate of one another. We don't have a rampant spread of the virus happening in our area right now, but we won't know that we do until we do. And so we want to try to be careful and be on guard and be vigilant. And so if you can just do your best to keep an eye on those things, keep your distance, and I'm praying and just asking for God's hand of help on our country and on our nation and on us as a people, and just pray for God's help. If you could remember Scott Crawford, he's got surgery that is scheduled to remove cancer with follow-up treatment. And then my wife has got that appointment coming up tomorrow. She headed down to see her mom because that appointment was first thing in the morning. And so that's where she is tonight. If you could remember her in prayer, she's had a rough week, so the timing of this visit was really, really good. I know we would all appreciate that very much. And don't forget, next week we'll have Dr. Dave Hardy here to preach for the day, as well as the missions conference being moved from the end of this month to July the 5th. So I'm excited about that, looking forward to it. And I'm going to go ahead and pray and ask the Lord's blessing, and then we'll receive the offering. Thank you again, Lord, for the day. Thank you for the chance to be here. I just pray you would put your hand of help upon this day, that you would put your hand upon the service, that you'd meet with us. Would you bless the offering? Would you bless the gift and the giver? And Lord, we just thank you for all that you've done. It is just so good to be able to sing together and to hear these great songs filling up our auditorium again, and chance to be able to see one another again. And Lord, I ask for your hand of help upon the day. Would you just use it? And I pray that you would be honored and glorified by all that's said and done. We ask it in Jesus' name and for his sake. Amen.
Let's go ahead and stand one more time now, if you're able to. We're going to sing Hold the Fort. Whenever we get to the chorus, I did not bring my Bible up here. All right, I'm glad it's not a pink one at least. Amen. All right. Whenever it gets to the spot where it says wave the answer back to heaven, let's take our Bibles and let's wave the answer back to heaven. Let's sing it out here on the first verse now. Oh, my comrades, see the signal waving in the sky. Reinforcements now appearing, victory is nigh. Hold the fort, for I am coming. Jesus signal still. Wave the answer now. Wave the answer back to heaven. By thy grace we will see the mighty
really, really great singing. Excellent. Love that song. And it is wonderful to be back inside the building again. I'd like to ask you to take your Bibles, turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 1. 1 Samuel chapter number 1. And we are going to begin reading in verse number 21. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse number 21. 1 Samuel chapter 1, and we'll read beginning in verse number 21, and then read down to the end of the chapter. 1 Samuel 1, 21 through 28. If you remember this morning, we highlighted a couple things about the life of Hannah, about the actions that she had that gave a foundation and gave a template that Samuel could follow to become indeed a really incredible man of God, and a man who prayed, a man who looked to the Lord, who didn't let what people did around him keep his eyes from the Lord. And I'd like to take you here tonight to 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse number 21. And I want you to try to get the picture in your mind for a moment. Hannah has prayed and asked the Lord to give her a child, and God's done it. But it's one thing to say, I'm going to give my child to the Lord. It's another thing to give your child to the Lord. I mean, she literally takes her child after he's weaned and brings him to live at the tabernacle and brings him to live at the house of God, and then just comes and visits him once a year after that. I mean, that's an incredible, incredible thing. And so we're going to begin reading in verse number 21, 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse number 21. And if you'll stand with me for the reading of God's word, 1 Samuel 1:21, the Bible says, "And the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer unto the Lord the yearly sacrifice and his vow. But Hannah went not up, for she said unto her husband, I will not go up until the child be weaned, and then I will bring him that he may appear before the Lord, and there abide forever. And Elkanah her husband said unto her, Do what seemeth thee good. Tarry until thou have weaned him, only the Lord establish his word. So the woman abode and gave her son suck until she weaned him. And when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bullocks and 1 ephah of flour and a bottle of wine, and brought him unto the house of the Lord in Shiloh. And the child was young. And they slew a bullock and brought the child to Eli. And she said, O my Lord, as my soul liveth, my Lord, I am the woman that stood by thee here praying unto the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition, which I asked of him. Pay attention to verse 28. Therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord. And he, meaning Samuel, worshiped the Lord there. Thank you for staying for the reading of God's word. You can be seated. Let's pray, ask the Lord's blessing, and then we'll get right into the message. Thank you again, Lord, for the day. Thank you for the chance to be here. I pray that you would help us now as we look at this incredibly, incredibly important subject, and we look at it as an example, in one of the finest examples that we can see in the Bible. Help us now, Lord, to remember that sometimes we can do a right thing, but with the wrong attitude, and that can impact everything. And God, I pray you'd help us to do a right thing with the right attitude, and we might experience the true blessing and help from it. So God, I pray now that you would just use this time. I pray that you would speak to our hearts, and I ask now that you would meet with us in a special way. Would you give the help and the strength and the power of the Holy Spirit, without which, Lord, I can do nothing. So help us, we again ask in Jesus' name and for his sake. Amen. If I could take you to a companion passage of Scripture, I would, but instead I'm going to go to one that I think everybody can quote, or most everybody can quote. You may have heard it so much that you thought it's in the Bible, but it's not actually in the Bible, all right? It goes, if who's not happy, no one's happy. If mom is not happy, no one's happy. And it's not actually in the Bible, just for the record, in case you thought it was. But could you imagine here is a mom who's wanted a child. She's prayed and fasted for a child. She said, God, if you'll give me a child, she makes a vow, I'll give him to you, and he'll serve you all the days of his life. And then God does it, and God gives her a child. Now imagine, when she made that promise, she didn't have a child to hold in front of her. She had no children. When she made that promise, she had never known the pain of labor and delivery. When she made that promise, she had never looked into the little eyes that had a resemblance to her own as they looked back into her. When she made that promise, she had never quieted a crying baby who had been upset and got the baby to be calm. When she made that promise, she'd never heard the little baby make happy sounds, because babies can even make happy sounds sometimes. When she made that promise, she'd never heard the baby do a little laugh, and she'd never burped the baby, and she'd never seen her baby begin to crawl or roll over for the first time, or take his first steps. None of those things had ever happened. She had never experienced it. It wasn't like she had experienced it with other children. She had never experienced any of those things when she made that promise to God. And by the time she fulfills that promise, she has experienced all of those things. Now, you probably know that there are certain things that you don't really know until you've experienced them. There's certain things you don't really understand until you experience them. I don't particularly believe that babies are the cutest things in the world, all right? I think babies are somewhat awkward, and when they're first born, they're a little bit misshapen, and of course they just cry. And really, even for the first 2 or 3 weeks, the babies, they change a decent bit until they settle into looking what I would consider like normal babies, all right? They change a little bit, and when babies are first born, they're kind of puffy, and when my first son, Dave was born, he came out blue, and I thought, what on earth? The magic of childbirth, I heard. Turns out the magic of childbirth is that what you end up with doesn't look much like what comes out of the womb. All right, there's a big change that takes place there, and he finally started to cry and pink up and all the rest of that stuff. But I remember, even though he was a little baby, and really, I mean, you try to look deep to find the features on babies. Maybe you can see them, maybe you can't. Maybe. I looked at some pictures of Grace when she was about 1.5 years, and I could see some of Grace that's here now when she was a baby, and I could see some, but I certainly wouldn't have guessed she's going to look like she looks now when she was 1.5 years. I'm just saying she resembled a lot her brother at one point when she was a baby, and Dave's a boy and she's a girl. I mean, they're both babies. They just kind of look the same. But I said all that to say, you still look at that child and you love that child because it's your own child. I mean, it's your child. You love it. And then if somebody insults that child, you want to attack them. And if you're like me, you don't want anybody else attributing any features of them to anyone else but maybe me or my wife, all right? Don't tell me how he looks like your uncle so-and-so or your brother. Sorry, doesn't count. I don't want to hear how Grace looks like my sister. No, Grace looks like me or she looks like her mama, all right? That's the only two answers that I will accept as true, all right? My sister didn't have anything to do. She has her own children. I don't look at any of her children and think, oh, they've got my... No, they're your kids, all right? They're yours. You get all the credit or all the blame, all right? I don't get any of that, all right? And so... she had never experienced any of that. When she knelt down in bitterness of heart, and I could imagine that it would not be hard at all for when God gives her a child, and she knows the joy of having her own child, and then she finds out that she's now had a son, and God's granted her the request, I could imagine in her heart how easy it would be to justify, I'll give the next one to the Lord. Maybe we'll give him to the Lord when he gets old enough to leave the house. Maybe by give him to the Lord, I mean we'll go to the house of Shiloh 3 times a year instead of just once a year.
Maybe by giving to the Lord, he'll spend the summer there, but then spend the rest of the time here. It would have been incredibly easy for her to justify going back on her promise, because this was a highly unusual thing that she had even promised to begin with. But when you get to the end of the chapter, I'm going to make the case here tonight. Not only did she follow through and fulfill with her promise, but she did so with the kind of attitude and heart that is exceptional and rare. Because when someone's heart is right and their attitude is right, it affects how they do what they do in a very profound way. And while Samuel was influenced greatly by his mother's actions, I can submit to you that his mother's attitude was just as important as her actions. When you get down to the end of the chapter, in verse number 27, she says this, "For this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition which I asked of him. Therefore also have I lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord." And he worshiped the Lord there. I want to just point out to you here about her a couple of simple observations tonight. And I just want to say right off the outset, it's Mother's Day, and this morning I was pretty nice. No? You're not convinced? I thought I was pretty nice. I thought it was a nice Mother's Day message. I didn't say anything like, "You mothers, you're not setting right examples, and that's why your kids are going to the devil," right? I didn't say that. Apparently, I need to get really mean so people know what nice truly is, all right? I didn't say anything like that. I didn't say, "I'll tell you the problem with our country. We don't have moms who will live for God." I didn't say that, all right? So tonight, I want you to realize that I want to delve into something that I believe is incredibly important, but is so often overlooked. And so I'm not trying to beat moms up. It's Mother's Day, all right? But if you got a bad attitude, hopefully you'll be better by the end of the message, all right? Because that's what the message is about. It's about attitude. And if there is an area where a woman exerts incredible influence, it is in her attitude. And most of the time, you don't realize you have a bad attitude. And most of the time, you don't. Most of the time, you justify your attitude. "I don't have a bad attitude. I'll tell you the problem. They have the problem. That's the problem. I don't have a bad attitude." We justify it. And I want to just point out a couple things here in this passage of Scripture about Hannah and about the attitude she had about serving the Lord and how it translated to her whole family. First, I want you to just notice this. She served the Lord sincerely. She served the Lord sincerely. She didn't just come to God with her problems and say, "Oh God, I need a child, give me a child, give me a child." And then if God didn't answer her prayer, she stayed bitter and mad at the Lord. I've seen so many people have an attitude when it comes to serving God that serving the Lord is a transaction. I'll do this for God, but now He has to do this for me. And if God doesn't do this for me, then He's not fair, and I'm not going to do anything till He makes things even. All right? That is a horrible attitude for serving God. The truth is, if we got what we deserved, we would be on our way to hell. If it weren't for the grace of God, none of us could be saved or would be saved. And if God left us in a third world country with a debilitating disease and no financial means, we would deserve to do nothing but thank and praise His name for saving our good-for-nothing souls for as long as we lived. I mean, God has been really, really good to us. And she did not serve the Lord because of what she got. Remember, when she went to the house of God and prayed, she had another woman that was also married to her husband. There was another woman, Peninnah, who had many children, and she did not. Her husband's attempts to console her were less than stellar. And she found herself in a place where she was being provoked by this other wife constantly Yet she has a heart for God. Yet she serves the Lord. Yet she is not bitter against the Lord. Yet she goes to God in prayer, and she served the Lord sincerely. She did not just say, I'm here because I need a child. What do I have to do to get a child? No, she asked God. God said, I'll give you a child. And when the time came, she realized that it would only be right for her to give back to God what God gave to her. I think it's fascinating in verse number 28 that, when I say that a wife has incredible influence or a mom has incredible influence over the family, I don't know if there's a better verse to show you that than verse 23. Elkanah is getting ready to go to the house of God in Shiloh, and she says, I'm not going to go up. Verse number 22, until the child be weaned, then I'll bring him that he may appear before the Lord and there abide. And Elkanah, her husband, said unto her, Do it seemeth thee good. Sure, yeah, do what sounds good to you. You know why he said that? Because he wants her to be happy, right? He's going to do what she wants. He wants her to be happy. Do what seemeth good. Tarry until thou have weaned him. Only the Lord establish his word. Make sure you keep your promise, but do what seemeth thee good. And so she does. The woman abode, and then she begins to raise the child. If she had said to her husband, look, I'm going to wait until he's 12, and then I'm going to give him to the Lord, I think he would have said, that sounds good. That sounds good. You know, honey, I think you're onto something there. That's smart. Yeah, we'll wait till he's a man. Then we'll give him to the Lord as a man. The truth was, her husband isn't overly exerting here too much of his authority over her. He's trying to make her happy the best that he can. And what does she do when you get to verse number 28 and she does give the child to the Lord? She says, Therefore also I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord. Maybe you've heard this before at a wedding, but there are many things that I hear at weddings that cause me to roll my eyes secretly in my head, all right? But the first time I heard this, it made such an impact. The father of the bride stood up, and he said, I don't look at today like I am losing a daughter, but he said, I look at today like I'm gaining a son. And I remember thinking, what a perspective. What a perspective. Or, he just didn't want to let go of his daughter. But whatever it was, it sounded really good to me at the time. I thought, what a great perspective. He didn't look at it like he was losing something. He looked at it like he was gaining something. Now, when she says, I have lent him to the Lord, there is actual scripture to back this up. Of course, you know that the Bible says, He that hath pity upon the poor lendeth unto the Lord, and that which he hath given in Proverbs shall he repay him again. The Bible says, give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down and shaken over, and running over, shall men pour into your bosom. There not be room enough to receive it. The Bible makes again and again the promise that what you reap is what you sow is what you're going to reap. And she did not look at it like I am losing a son. She looked at it like I am lending a son. I am giving this son to the Lord, and what you lend is something that causes something to come back to you with interest. Where'd she get that idea? It wasn't like she was going to get her son back. She said he's going to abide with him forever. She just knew this. You can't outgive God. You can't outgive God. She knew that if she would be faithful to the Lord, God would be faithful to her. What a perspective. No wonder she was able to go to the house of God and to present her son and say, here you go. I am giving the most valuable thing that I have, the most precious thing in the world to the Lord. But she said, I am lending it to the Lord. That is how you can become a cheerful giver. You have the right attitude when you give. And here is the mother of this young man, and she says it twice. She says, I've lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord. She didn't mean I can recall him at any point. She was just simply saying this, what you give to God, God returns back. And He does. He does. You go on to read and you find out that God continues to give to her sons and He gives to her daughters. But she served the Lord sincerely. If we can come to the place that we realize that serving the Lord is good and it is right and God is worthy of anything that we give to Him, no matter what we get in return, we can know the joy of being happy Christians. We can have the right kind of attitude. She didn't give to God and say, he better give me another one. She just said, no, I'm lending him to the Lord, and as long as he lives, he's going to be lent to the Lord. I love it. Verse 27, for this child I prayed, and the Lord hath given me my petition, which I asked of him. If you would just remember everything you have, God gave to you, it changes your attitude. It changes your attitude. I mean, really, it changes your attitude. If you have the attitude, these are my things, and I've got to hang on to them, and I earned them, then it's a lot harder to give. But if you'll remember everything you have, God gave to you, it's not really that hard to give back. By the way, that was Job's attitude. Remember, he said, the Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. He said, I didn't come into the earth with anything. I'm going to paraphrase. I'm not going to leave with anything. God's good. Everything I have, I just have on loan for a little while. Naked came I into this world, naked shall I return thither. That's what he's saying. He said, I didn't come in with anything, and I'm not going to leave with anything. So everything I have is on loan from the Lord. And if I can loan it back to the Lord, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? You see, you can't outgive God. And she had an attitude that said, what God has given to me, it's only good and right for me to give back to Him. And so she serves the Lord sincerely. And because she serves the Lord sincerely, I love this. This is her heart. This is her attitude. She's got a son who wants to serve the Lord sincerely. And really, that leads me to the second observation I want to make. Not only did she serve God sincerely, but she wanted Samuel to serve the Lord sincerely. She wanted Samuel to serve the Lord sincerely. Could you imagine for a moment if Oliver, we're going to do a social distance illustration. Come up here. Come here for a second. Don't worry. All right. We're going to keep our distance. You're going to stand on this end here, all right? But Oliver's just turned 6. So Oliver was about Samuel's height, probably in build and all the rest of it. I imagine Samuel was a snazzy dresser like this guy too, all right? I mean, his mom made him a linen coat every year. Probably kept up changing it with the styles, all right? So anyway, here you go. You stand right there. You're just right there. That's perfect. Now, I'm just going to pretend if I was Hannah for a moment. Now, pretend we were closer, but we're trying to be good examples right now, so we're keeping our distance, all right? You know that? You're with me on that? You're supportive of it? Okay, good. And so I said to him, well, I made a promise to God before you were born. I asked him if he would give me a child, and I didn't think he would do it, and then he did it. So I have to do it. I've got to give you. I don't want to do it, but I made the promise, and so I've got to do it. Sorry, I'm going to miss you. I don't want to go, but sometimes God just takes our most precious things. I'm sorry. Just a minute. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay, Samuel. It's going to be fine, okay? I'm sure that Eli's really nice, okay? Oh, man. Oh, it's your dad's problem. I told him, be a man, stand up, say no. He didn't do it. You know, he could have. It's fine, but it'll be okay. I'm going to come see you. I'm going to write you letters. They're going to come as quick. I'm going to send them express mail. They'll be there once every 6 months, all right? And we're going to go out of our way, and I'm going to miss you. So if that's how she dropped her son off, what would his attitude be like there? I'm a prisoner of war. I've been dropped here against my will. My mom doesn't want to leave me, but God took me from... What a difference it would have made. Could you imagine? And look, I'm joking a little bit, but everything I'm saying you could probably imagine somebody saying. I mean, I didn't even really get far-fetched. Especially when I start talking about blaming the husband, right? Now we're really getting close to home. Because did you know that in the Bible the husband could invalidate a wife's vow? The wife could vow a vow, and the husband could actually say, no, I'm not going to hold you to that. And God would allow that. God would actually say, okay, that vow is not binding. And so Elkanah could have, but he didn't. And she could have said, well, your dad's the one, really. I mean, I may have made the vow, but what am I supposed to know? I mean, he's the one. She could have done that, but she didn't do that. Instead, she comes to the child. She's telling him, you're going to get to live in the house of God. You're going to get to be in the house of God. You're going to get to be taught by the high priest, Eli. There's a whole country full of young boys that will never get the opportunity you're going to get. And God answered prayer in a special way, and He gave me to you so that I could give you back to Him. And I want you to know I love you, little Sammy. Trying to make sure you're paying attention. I don't know if I can combine Samuel Oliver, maybe. All right. He loves you and I love you, but you're going to get a special opportunity to serve the Lord. I'm going to come by and see you once a year, and I want you to know I love you, but God is good, and you're going to get to know the Lord in a special way. We get to go to the house of God once a year to worship, but you're going to get to be there every single day. Can you see how it changes the conversation? It makes a difference. Thanks, buddy. You can take your seat. You've been a good Samuel, all right? You've been a good Samuel. I bring that up for this reason. Because overwhelmingly, I have observed that when a mom has the wrong attitude, it is reflected in her children. Overwhelmingly, I have observed this. When children have a bad attitude, many times you say, well, I mean, man, I don't know where those kids get it from. They're getting it from somewhere. All right, either there are friends that are a bad influence that are having an impact on them, or they're observing it differently. Think about this. When you and I come to church, I see you when you come into the doors or come onto the property. But there is a life that exists that I don't get to see. There's conversations that happen after church I don't get to hear. There are conversations that happen before church I don't get to hear. And just for the record, I'm okay with that. Okay? I'm glad I haven't got to hear you be critical. All right? I'm not complaining about that. There are some things where I really believe ignorance is bliss. All right? I really do believe that. But there are times where a family might be doing the right thing, but doing it with the wrong attitude. And she didn't just want to serve the Lord, but she wanted her children to serve the Lord. And this is pretty incredible. But she teaches Samuel how to worship the Lord. She teaches Samuel how to serve the Lord. She teaches Samuel all these things before he even knows the Lord. Go back to the end of chapter 1 for a moment. Therefore, chapter 1, verse 28, therefore also have I lent him to the Lord. As long as he liveth, he shall be lent to the Lord. This is an incredible statement. And he worshiped the Lord there. Who's he? He is Samuel. Samuel, as a young boy, worshiped the Lord as a young child, maybe 5 years old, maybe 6 years old. He worships the Lord as a young child. That's a pretty incredible statement, but here's a more incredible statement. 1 Samuel chapter 3. 1 Samuel chapter 3. Verse number 1, it says, and the child Samuel, what? Ministered unto the Lord before Eli. Hold your place there because I'll go right back to it. Chapter 2, verse 18. But Samuel, what? Ministered before the Lord. Maybe I had to turn the page, so I got you too quickly. Chapter 2, verse 18. But Samuel, what? Ministered before the Lord, being a child, girded with a linen ephod. Moreover, his mother made him a little coat and brought it to him from year to year when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. Now jump back to chapter 3. The child Samuel ministered to the Lord. Notice again, the key word is the child Samuel ministered to the Lord, unto the Lord, before Eli. And the word of the Lord was precious in those days. There was no open vision. And it came to pass when Eli was laid down in his place that his eyes began to wax dim, that he could not see. And ere the lamp of God went out in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was, and Samuel was laid down to sleep. This is the environment Samuel gets raised in. So many problems in these verses. Real quick, here's one. The lamp of God that goes out in verse 3 was never supposed to go out. It was the job of the Levites, or in this case would be the priests, to keep that lamp burning continually. So they're literally sleeping on the job. All right, the job that they have, they're letting out. The lamp of God's going to go out. Not only that, the word of the Lord is precious in those days. Not precious like, oh, we're so glad to have it. Precious as in scarce. Same way we use precious metals. Metals are precious not because they're valuable because they're scarce. I mean, think about it. If gold was everywhere, gold would have no value. It would be like dirt. That's why we have pyrite, which is fool's gold. It's much more readily available and abundant. It looks like gold, but it's worthless. And so the word of the Lord was precious. There was no open vision. The lamp of God burns out. Samuel was laid down to sleep. Verse 4, that the Lord called to Samuel, and he answered, Here am I. And he ran to Eli and said, Here am I, for thou calledst me. And he said, I called not. Lie down again. And he went and lay down. And the Lord called yet again Samuel. And Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, Here am I, for thou didst call me. And he answered, I called not, my son. Lie down again. Watch this, verse 7. Now Samuel did not yet, what? Know the Lord. Hang on, I thought Samuel was ministering unto the Lord. I thought Samuel was worshiping the Lord. Which one is it? Answer? Both. It's both. Did you know that Samuel was learning to serve God before he even knew the Lord? Samuel was even worshiping the Lord. He was giving honor and glory to the Lord before he really knew him well. And you say, that seems backward. No, that's as right as rain. That's how it ought to be. That's how it ought to be. It's one of the wonderful things that I love about having children in church. We already don't segregate children out hardly at all. Our Sunday nights and Wednesday nights, we're all together anyway, except for kids that are 3 and under that are in the nursery. We already don't do this substantially, but it's one of the reasons why we don't. People say, hey, do you have children's programs on this and this night? And I'm not against them per se, but I love children being in the same church we are in. Because I don't want when let's see, Grace, you haven't turned 13, right? You're still 12? So she's 12, right? So in the typical church, you got a junior church program you go to, then you got like a Sunday night kids program you go to, then you turn 13, and then you got to go to the regular church, and then you go, so wait, do we get candy for listening to the preacher now? Well, no, you don't get candy. We don't get candy? Do we still sing Father Abraham in church? No, not typically. The overwhelming majority of the congregation isn't really in favor of Father Abraham at this point. You know, you lost him at right arm, left arm, right foot. No, we're done. Sorry. We're sticking with right arm, left arm. That's as far as we can go in the song. All right. Once you got to the right foot, now we're in trouble. And so we don't sing Father Abraham. And so they say, wow, this is so different. And there's a huge drop-off at 13, and there's a huge drop-off at 18. All right. At 13 is when the children's program's in, and children come in to see what real church is like for adults, and they say, oh, this is totally different. At our church, that doesn't ever have to happen. Right? They get to grow up, and they sing the same songs before they go to junior church that we sing in church. They sing the same songs Sunday night, we sing. They sing the same songs Wednesday night, we sing. They memorize the same verses, hopefully you're memorizing. They memorize the same verses each week that I'm memorizing. And you say, well, but not all the kids. We've got kids in here right now who aren't paying attention. Really, they're not paying attention. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Uriah. He's over there on some kind of little sketch pad right now. The thought. It looks like some orange sketch pad. He's not the only one. I just picked him out because he had a big orange sketch pad when I looked up. How old's Uriah? Is he 2? He's almost 2. I dare say that it's pretty unlikely you're going to get much better than what they're getting from Uriah. They're doing good just to try to teach him to sit right now. Right? I'm not going to go beat up Uriah because, Uriah, tell me the 4 main points of this message. How dare you? You only got 2. All right? There was only actually 2. All right? But anyway, I'm not going to do that. But here's the thing. Uriah is going to start to learn the songs we sing before he even knows he's learning the songs we sing. Uriah is going to learn what the Bible is before he even really knows what the Bible is. Uriah is going to actually learn to listen to the preacher before he ever really even realizes what the preacher is saying. Uriah is actually learning to go to church before he even fully comprehends what church is. It's pretty incredible. We've got kids that sing songs and they worship the Lord that are not yet saved. They don't even know the Lord. It's a thing of beauty because there's going to come a point in time when things click. And they're going to go, oh, so wait, The Jesus who we sing, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. He died on the cross, but He died for me. Because I've sinned, and He died to pay for my sins so that I could be saved. I want to get saved. Of course I believe in the Lord. I've been believing in the Lord before I could say, Jesus is one of the first words I said. That's how it ought to be. It's how it ought to be. And here's what you'll find. Your children know more than you give them credit for. And your children, especially as they're younger, they pick up more than you realize. I heard this story. I don't know if you guys just told it to my wife or what, from Kendon and Ashley. But we're doing the drive-up services, and drive-in services make it challenging, right? Anybody who brought their children to drive-up service knows it's challenging. You got kids running around, trying to do flips and stuff over the car. They can't leave the car. You're trying to listen and all the rest of it. And like I said, some of those kids honk the horns. I think the first horn honk was a kid, all right? I think the kids started the horn honking amen thing, actually. But they honked the horn. I don't remember if it was Oliver who did it or what it was, but honked the horn, and it was like a little louder than you would consider a normal amen, but I just like to think he was really into it, all right? And so it's challenging. It's tough. I know it's tough. Anyone who did it knows it's hard. It's hard. And so they were going to go to service, but they thought, we'll just drop Conrad and Asa off so they can go play with, I think, maybe grandparents or something. And so they were going to go drop them off. And Conrad's 3, right? He's 2.5. He's not even 3. He's 2.5. All right, he's not even 3. And they're getting ready to go drop him off before, I think, Wednesday night church. And Conrad says, I'm not going to church? Something like that, right? I'm not going to church? And I think, if I can remember right, they said, well, you are now. Okay, give us him back. Asa can stay with you. Conrad's coming with us. You know what they realized? Conrad knew more than they realized. Conrad was picking up more than they realized. And it's not because Conrad's taking notes in church right now. I don't think that's what he's doing right now. His head's down. He's working feverishly. He's like, I finally made it into the illustration. This is the day I've been waiting for. I don't think that's what's happening right now. All right? He's probably drawn a picture, especially if he's like his dad. All right? He's probably doodling in church. Did I mention that children learn from their parents' actions? but anyway, so he's probably in church doodling. But you know what he's figured out? Not even 3. I go to church. I go to church with my parents. Now, Conrad does not yet know the Lord. He's not been saved. And for the record, he'd be at a state of innocence right now, if you want to know the theological term. It's not that his parents need to get him saved at 2.5. He doesn't fully comprehend what's going on yet. He's in a state of innocence, and so he's not saved, but I would say he's what you would call safe, all right, if something happened to him. And so he's in a state of innocence right now, but even though he doesn't know the Lord yet, he's learned to worship God. That is happening because his parents have got the right attitude. Parents got the right attitude. They want their children to serve the Lord. So don't look. It's like waiting. I don't understand why parents wait to discipline their children. I may understand why you don't discipline them right out of the womb. All right, I'm not talking about that. But I mean, you wait till your child can talk in full sentences. Well, they can't express themselves yet, so it wouldn't be right of me to. We're going to have to agree to disagree. My children, look, you know how your pets can get where you're going even though they don't speak English? So can your kids. I find it funny how intelligently we talk to dogs and how foolishly we talk to children. I told you not to eat that food if I put it here on the 4th corner. What's your problem? I told you every day, 4 o'clock. You know better than that. Where's the newspaper? You're smarter than that. No, that's a dog. He's not smarter than that. All right? His intelligence level is not that high. Your children know more than you realize. And Samuel was worshiping the Lord. He was ministering to God even though he didn't yet know the Lord. Think about this. The voice of God calls his name. And he doesn't even realize it. And so he goes to Eli and he says, yeah, you called for me. He said, no, I didn't call for you. Go back to bed. So he lays down and he hears Samuel. He gets up. He says, hey, I heard you call for me. He says, no, I didn't call for it. Go back to bed. He hears Samuel. And he comes back in. And this is how sharp Eli is. About the third time, he goes, oh, something must be happening that I'm not used to happening. God must be speaking. Remember, the word of the Lord is precious in those days. There's no open vision. And so he says in verse number 8, the Lord called Samuel the third time, and he went and arose to Eli, and he said, here am I, for thou didst call me. And Eli perceived the Lord had called the child. Therefore Eli said unto Samuel, go, lie down, and it shall be that if he shall call thee, thou shalt say, speak, Lord, for thy servant heareth. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. This is pretty incredible. Samuel had been being raised to hear the voice of God without even ever realizing he had been raised to hear the voice of God. It was pretty incredible. All he needed was when the time came, a little bit of instruction, and he was able to hear the voice of the Lord. That, if there was ever a model, is how we ought to want to raise our own kids. Just like that. We ought to raise our children so that when the time comes that they are old. You say, when are they going to be old enough to be able to comprehend what the message is about? Answer, sooner than you think. So that means you're going to have to go through the difficult and hard task of teaching your kids to actually sit in church. Can I tell you what makes it better? When you get the right attitude about it. The pastor won't let children in the nursery, so we have to do this. Right? Here's your coloring book. Pastor's just too dumb to realize kids don't pay attention, but what else? Here's your coloring book. Hopefully we can put you on the iPad and you can watch Netflix with your earphones on. You're not helping your family. The attitude that a wife has translates immensely. That's why the Bible tells the wife to submit to her husband. There are times where the Bible uses the word, see that she obey her husband, but it's very rare. It's far more often the Bible says submit to her husband. Well, what's the difference between the two? Well, it's like obeying and honoring. There's a difference between the two. I can obey without honoring my parents. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and thy mother, that it may be well with thee. So I say to, let's just create a very fictitious event. Let's just say I say to David and John, highly fictitious event. I say, you guys did a bad job on your chores this week, so you're going to have to do extra, you're going to have to do the whole kitchen next week. And they go, oh, so unfair. Oh, Dad, so unfair. But Grace, but Anna. And I say, no, we're not arguing about it. You got to do it. Fine. So they sweep, and they got a bad attitude. They say, I'm not sweeping. Are they obeying? Are they honoring? No. Watch. One is an action, obedience. Another is an attitude, honoring. So when a wife submits to her husband, it is more of an attitude than it is an action. Obedience would be the action, but submission is the attitude. Submission means to put yourself under. It means to submit, to go underneath. And to do that, there must be some humbling that happens. That's a lot harder to do. I've heard things like this. Well, but what do I have to submit when I don't agree? Yeah, that's especially when you have to submit. But what if he's wrong? I forgot the notion that a husband would ever be wrong. Sorry, that was funny. Obviously, that never happens. Yeah, husband's never wrong, of course. I mean, at least in my house, husband's never wrong. I certainly assume it's that way in every other house. Come on, guys, wake up. All right, but no, look, it still takes an act of humility. It takes the act of saying, okay, I will submit to that. It's an attitude that says, if God put you here, then I'll be willing to follow you, and I'll be willing to trust the Lord more than me. You know what Hannah had in spades? She had an incredible attitude. She had the right kind of attitude, and that attitude translated to her children. I'm saying I've seen people who they do come to church. They do. It's not that they don't come to church, but the attitude that the wife has is awful. It's things like this. Well, we got to submit because that's like we're practically living in Sharia law, so we have to. It doesn't translate well. As a mom and a dad, you should not ever fight in front of your kids, ever. If you don't agree, your children should never know about it. Really, they should never know about it. I feel this way strongly about leadership. But look, you can have a disagreement behind closed doors, but when you walk out, you are a united front. You're a united front. There were times when I had to debate, and I would debate the affirmative of something, and then I would have to debate the negative right afterward. The same argument that I was making why something was true, I'd have to make the argument why something's not true. You know, it's a fun practice. Sometimes, though, wives, you're going to have to do that. This is what my husband says, so this is the position I'm going to hold. Yeah. Look, I'm not talking about God says one thing and your husband says another. I'm not talking about that, all right? I'm talking about the little things, right? Like, do you have to buckle up in the back seat or not? The law is not so clear on that. The law is very clear on the front seat, to my knowledge, not the back seat, right? Just kidding. You got to be buckled up in all seats. You're sure of that? It's probably the law in hydro, and so I'll definitely keep that in mind in hydro for sure. But that's the thing. Whatever it is, where there are cases where you can choose, you choose to support. You choose to have the right attitude. You say, well, it's Wednesday night. I don't want to have to be going to church. And here's the husband trying to be right and trying to give a good example, and the wife's got a bad attitude. Look, your children are going to pick up on that. They will. That's why the Bible says there's 3 different generations that happen around the time of Joshua. There's the generations of those who knew the Lord. Then there arose the generation that came after them, and they didn't know the Lord, but their parents knew the Lord. And so the parents who knew the Lord walked in the ways of God, and they stayed faithful to God. The children said, well, parents did it, so this is what we're going to do. But the third generation said, our parents did it, but they didn't know why they were doing it, so we're not going to do it. And the attitude wasn't there, and the action soon departed. She wanted her children to serve the Lord sincerely. It wasn't that she thought she was being wronged by God. She knew that it was a joy and a privilege to serve God, and Samuel learned the same thing. You know, your children are going to see what really matters to you. They really will. Your attitude shows it. Your attitude will show it. The people around you can see through your attitude. If you look through it in the Bible, there are things that transcend actions and go deeper to the heart. Submission would be an attitude. For that matter, joy is an attitude. The joy of the Lord is our strength. That's beyond the actions that happen. It's a choice that we make. And there are things that require a choice. And this is my experience. When a wife is not behind something, it's like dragging an anchor on a boat. It's the truth. I mean, when a wife is not behind something, it's like dragging an anchor on a boat. What's the holdup? What's the matter? It drains on you. It does. It drains on you. I'm the man of the house. I'm going to set the direction. This is the way we're going to go. And she can cross her arms and she can throw a tantrum, and it wears people out. That's why we say, if mama's not happy, ain't nobody happy. The truth is that the husband might set the direction, but you set the temperature. You do. You do. I can't tell you how many times I have seen people leave a church and the husband didn't want to come out and say it, but it was obvious. He didn't have anything to do with it. He didn't have anything to do with it. His wife wasn't happy. And he couldn't get the victory to get her to get the right attitude, and so they left. I was talking with a guy this week, and he was starting to complain about his church, and I said, well, man, why don't you come and visit? You want preaching that's direct? Come visit our church. He goes, I can't. Our wife said we can't leave. I said, man, way to take leadership. Right? She's just a little more honest about it than most guys are. I mean, some of you guys would say amen if your wives would tell you could. It'd be really nice. Maybe just look at her and see if she gives you raise the eyebrows and say an amen right here. Amen? All right. Thanks, ladies. I really needed that. It's getting pretty lonely up here right now. She wanted her children to serve the Lord. Let me give you an illustration. Two homes. In both homes, they went to a good church. They went to a faithful church, a Bible-preaching church. Same church. In the one home, the husband had a job that required him to travel and be gone a lot. Both homes had many children, more than 3. There was a wife. The wife bore extra responsibility when that happens. If you're in that situation, you know what I'm talking about. Husband's gone more, it's a lot heavier load on the wife. In both cases, husbands were both gone a lot. The wife had to carry an extra load. In the one case, the one wife had a bad attitude about it. She was mad that her husband was gone. She didn't think she should have to take care of the extra load. And so what did she do? Without realizing it, she began to complain to her children. Well, it's so hard because your dad's always gone. I wish your dad was here more, but now we have to do this and we have to do that. And she began to just constantly complain and begin to constantly gripe and constantly complain. Here's what happened. Those children looked at their dad and they thought, he's a bad dad. He's a bad dad. Why do we have such a bad dad? All right? Same exact situation. Dad's gone a lot. The wife had a totally different attitude. Totally different attitude. Dad was gone a lot. She said to her children, God is so good to our family. She rejoiced in the Lord. She honored her husband. Those children thought they had the best dad. In both cases, the father was absent immensely, a lot. All right, a lot. I don't mean like he worked till 6 or 7. I don't mean like that, all right? I mean, gone a lot. And just a little quick by the way here, it used to be pretty normal for the dad to be gone most of the day. Just throwing that out there. Leave early at the sun up and come as the sun was setting. There's a reason Jesus said, are there not 12 hours in a day? So before you have a pity party because he had to work 12 hours today, that was a normal day. That was a normal day. Once upon a time. Just freebie for you. All right, just free. Don't throw anything at me yet. But here's what amazed me. That home where the wife was complimentary of her husband, was encouraging, kept the right spirit, all of the children had great attitudes. All of the children loved their dad. All of the children served the Lord. I know this for sure because I married one of those kids. I married one of them. And I figured out the secret to the McQueen home wasn't really Richard McQueen. It was Sherry McQueen. She had an incredible attitude and still does to this day. Her husband was in insurance and traveled all over and then also pastored and was gone a lot. And her attitude was always good and complimentary and encouraging and everything else. She never griped and complained one time. And her kids their kids all felt like they had won the dad lottery. I like Brother McQueen a lot, don't get me wrong. He's gone a lot. You know what the difference was? It was the attitude of the mom. It was the attitude of the mom. They all had a heart to serve the Lord. None of them were begrudging. I've observed this time and time again. I mean, little things like here's the husband, and he wants to try to do something for the Lord, but that means the wife has got to carry some extra responsibility. All right? Your wife gets a bad attitude about it, and you're going to find what a drag it is to serve God. You're going to find out what a drag it is to serve God. Your wife gets a good attitude about it and says, man, your dad's serving the Lord. What a joy to be able to help do that. If that means I got to help get some kids extra ready today, that's okay. Man, praise God. You got a dad who wants to serve the Lord. It changes the whole climate of the home. It changed the whole climate of the home. I'm saying the attitude of a wife is immensely important. I am so grateful that my wife was raised with a good example from her mom in this area. My wife she's top shelf about it. You could probably complain to me, to some people, but you're not going to complain about me to somebody with the last name Corley, all right? They don't appreciate that very much. And I have a sister who's right now been away from the Lord, and so my kids got to meet her in their memory, maybe the first time when we went back down to Florida. And she went to make a little joke about Charity. She said something like, "Oh man, I'm glad I didn't have a mom like yours." They were ready to fight her. I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Oh yeah, your mom doesn't laugh." Like, she laughs plenty. What are you talking about? We're really glad to have a mom that we've got. You know, they figured something out. You don't talk bad about my mom. Amen. And that's the truth. I remind our children about this often. I'm grateful for the house I had growing up, but I'm like, man, you guys have got such a good mom. I hope you don't take it for granted. She doesn't even make bad food, like nothing. She's not been feeling good, so I've been doing some work to do a little extra cooking here and there. And don't think me too virtuous. Most of the cooking I'm doing is for me anyway. Okay, all right. I'm like, I'll make something for me. It's not. I'll make food for her too, but half the time she didn't want to eat it. And so I'm making something for me, and I do all this work, and I'm cooking, and then I eat it, and I'm like, man, this doesn't taste very good. This chicken's kind of rubbery, or it's overdone, or under, or whatever. She'll just dice a couple things, throw it in, and cook it, and it's juicy and tender, and she's feeling awful and hardly knows where she is. Like, it's not even fair, right? It's not even fair. It'd be like me trying to play piano versus her trying to play piano. The skill set is so big, the difference between the two of us. And I want my children to constantly realize what a joy it is. They're very fortunate to live in the home they have with the mom they have. Now, I can't say how fortunate they are to have the dad they have. Thankfully, their mom says that, and I don't have to. Or, of course, if she didn't, then I'd have to remind the whole family constantly how lucky they are to have me. I'm kind of like Elkanah. Am I not better to thee than 10 sons? But I'm really, really grateful that that's her attitude about serving the Lord, too. That's her attitude about serving the Lord. I had a meeting with somebody, and we were trying to plan dinner. And she said, "What time are you going to do dinner?" I said, "What time do you want to do it?" She said, "How about 6?" I had this meeting with this person at 4:30. And so I said, "Okay, yeah, that'll be fine. I'll have a meeting with this person at 4:30. This was just last week." And so I go to the meeting with this person, and they had asked to talk. And so I met with them and talked. And I could figure out pretty quick, this isn't going to be a fast meeting. It's going to be a longer meeting. 4:30 turns into 5:30. And I'm like, okay, well, we probably got to wrap things up here. And they didn't seem to just comprehend anything. They just kept on going. Anyway, I didn't get finished with them until about 6:30. And I come back to a message from her, and she says, "Hey, I figured it went long. I'm keeping the dinner warm. We'll be waiting for you whenever you get home." I can't tell you what a joy that is. I can't tell you what a joy that is to know it's not, oh boy, how bad's it going to be? Oh, man. Oh, boy. How much crow am I going to have to eat because I was counseling with somebody? I'm so thankful that's not my life. And that's not just one cherry-picked incident. Over and over and over and over again, she's had that attitude. And she learned it from her own mom, who still has one of the very best attitudes about serving the Lord I've ever seen. She looks at it like a joy and a privilege. She doesn't look at it like, oh, we had to stay at the church late. I guess we don't get to have family time. She says, hey, we got to have time together as a family at the church. For real. But we didn't go get to all watch TV together? Man, is that really going to have a bad attitude about that? I hope not. Learn to have the right attitude. Change how you see things. Get behind the people in your life who want to serve God, because there are many people in here who wish they had that problem. There are many people in here who said, boy, I wish that was my problem. I had a spouse that just wanted to serve the Lord. Encourage it. Cultivate it. Have the right heart and the right attitude. Here's what you'll find. You say, I don't know why my kids don't seem to want to come to church. It could be because even though you come to church, you don't really want to either. You know, that little tantrum you threw about, why do we have to go tonight? Come on, we should just stay home. That's ridiculous. Your kids heard that. Your attitude shows. It does. And I have seen my experience. We can go on a trip, and if my wife's not happy, you don't just pretend and everybody's good. The whole car's quiet. Turn on the radio, turns off the radio. It's a long time to get to Oklahoma City like that. It is. She gets a good attitude about it. She, of course, that's only happened for like 2 or 3 minutes one time. She got her attitude right, all right. She's great with her attitude. She said she's going to watch the live stream, so I hope she does, maybe. Or we can edit this part out. And I mean, when she gets on board, I tell you, it makes everything different. It makes everything different. I'm still the leader of the home. I'm still going to set the destination. I still want to do right before God, but I'll tell you, it makes the journey so much better when she's on board and she's behind. And I'm grateful to God. I'm grateful to God constantly for the wife God gave me because of that. Her attitude is second to none. It's fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic. There are people who she could be upset about and bitter about. She doesn't do that. She's got a good heart and a good attitude. She doesn't lament, oh, why has God dealt me this hand? Of course, being married to me. She doesn't do that. Some of that really hit home to you. You're like, yeah, that's how she doesn't do that. She just makes the best of it, right? She's made lemonade out of the situation, and she makes the best out of what she can. And what an attitude, what a difference it makes. I'll just say from my own experience that I have observed it and I have experienced the difference it makes when there's a right attitude. It's a huge difference. If you don't have that, take it before God and ask for God's help. Do what you can. There's an interesting Bible study to be made that one of the things that held Moses back was actually his wife. There's a point in time where God's actually going to kill Moses because he hasn't circumcised his children. If you'll read between the lines, I think you'll come up with the same conclusion I did. The reason he hadn't circumcised his children was because his wife, who was an Ethiopian, didn't want to do it. She said, we don't do that. We're not going to do that. That seems ridiculous. And then God's going to kill her, and ultimately she does it, and does it with a bad attitude, and says, you're a bloody husband to me. You're a bloody husband to me. Look, the attitude matters. It matters. It absolutely matters. So learn to get a good attitude. Learn to see the joy in serving the Lord. Here's a woman who's bringing her child to give him to God. And you know what she says? I'm lending him to the Lord. Is she putting on a good front? Well, I don't know. She's just given her child to the Lord. 1 Samuel 1:28, 1 Samuel 2:1. She's just given her child to the Lord. Samuel's not here now. And Hannah prayed and said, my heart, what? Rejoiceth. What? She just dropped off her firstborn son. He's a good kid, too. He's a good kid. You'd want Samuel as a kid. He's a good kid. He's the kind of kid that if you call him at the middle of the night, he's going to come. And then you send him to bed and call him again, he's going to come. You send him to bed, call him again, he's going to come. He's a good kid. This is her son that she loves, and she's just given him to the Lord, and she says, my heart rejoiceth in the Lord. Mine horn is exalted in the Lord. My mouth is enlarged over mine enemies, because I rejoice in thy salvation. You read this. This is not a song of, oh God, why have you taken? But it's a song of, thank you, God, for your goodness. Look what you've given. This is it, and we'll be done. If you want to get an attitude change, don't focus on what you don't have. Focus on what you do. Don't focus on what you don't have. Focus on what you do. Thank God for what you have. And we'll see what a difference an attitude adjustment really makes. Would you bow your heads for prayer?